And now I am thrilled to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Kevin Snyder, DTM and accredited speaker. Kevin is the only Toastmaster in the world who received the prestigious accredited speaker designation in 2022, which recognizes professional speakers who are also Toastmasters. As a professional speaker, Kevin's full-time career is presenting to audiences all over the world on topics ranging from leadership to wellness in the workplace, communication, and team empowerment. To date, he has presented in over 1,500 audiences and 1 million people in all 50 states and several countries. Kevin's speaking journey was a struggle starting off. In fact, he struggled. It wasn't until he joined Toastmasters, the National Speakers Association, and hired a speaking coach that his improvement really began. As his speaking became more impactful with audiences and led to paid engagements consistently, Kevin was able to resign his day job as a university dean of students to pursue a new dream of professional speaking. Kevin is also the author of several best-selling books, 2 of which are bestsellers. In addition to his own speaking, Kevin is also a speaker coach, helping people learn how to become a professional speaker, how to become a TEDx speaker, and how to become a published author. He lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with his amazing family, and, fun fact, he lived his childhood dream of meeting Bob Barker and winning big on the television game show, The Price is Right. So, fellow Toastmasters and guests, please join me in welcoming today's speaker, Dr. Kevin Snyder. Kevin, come on down.
Oh, come on, twice as loud, come on. Folks, if we can't have fun, something's wrong. Are you with me? All right, now, my friends in D35, who here today is ready to thrive? You truly are ready to thrive. All right, I see some hands going up. I saw some half hands. Like I know you spotlighted me, but I've got you on gallery, so I can see everybody from Larry to Barb to Jenny to Lacey to Brad. So I want to ask you that question one more time. And by this, if you're really ready to thrive, I want you to show each other that you're ready to thrive in 35, because this is the year. This has to be the year, right? So one more time, are you ready to thrive in 35? All right. Take a screenshot of that. That looks really cool. I love it. I love it. Now, as we get started, do I have any Price is Right fans today? By show of hands. Let me see you. Give me a thumbs up, or, all right, I see a few. I see a lot. Yeah, if you didn't just do that, check your pulse, right? If you're my age or higher, you've probably yelled at the TV a few times when somebody makes those silly bids. And yes, Bob Barker, that was my dream as a kid. And if you watch my accredited speaker keynote, and I'll give you a link to that if you'd like, I talk more about why that dream was so important for me. That dream actually helped save my life. And when I achieved my dream of meeting Bob Barker, being on The Price is Right, it actually, over the next few years, led into professional speaking. It became my signature story. So we won't talk too much about that today. We're going to talk really about you today, about leadership, right? How, as part of your TLI here, and I'm so honored to be part of this. I want to give another shout out to Terry. Let's give a shout out to Terry real quick. Terry McGregor. I'm here because she asked me. It was that simple. And then she had to keep track of me, And I'm really honored to be with you all today. So I would encourage you, if you've got a pen or a pencil, go ahead. I'm going to share a lot of information with you in a short period of time. We will also keep this interactive. I am much more interested in you taking action than taking notes. But I hope that I do share some insights with you today that you'll write down to not just help you with your own inspiration, but also how to help your club, how to help your area, your division, your district. Okay? All right. Now, our goals for today, I'm always thinking about how can I add value to an audience specifically, okay? So our goals for today, number one, I want to share some insights with you that will help you maximize your success. All right, now, I like the word insights, and here's why. I don't have the answers. In fact, who am I to know exactly what the questions that some of you might have? I do have my chat open up. We'll take some questions here in a moment and at the very end. But who am I to think I have the answer, right? I mean, that sounds kind of narcissistic, and we have enough of those folks in politics. So I just want to share with you today some insights. Does that sound good? And these are insights from my own speaking experience. These are insights also. I've served as a club president to 3 different clubs. I've chartered a club. I've been a mentor to a club. I've been involved with Toastmasters for over 10 years. And so my insights also come from my Toastmasters experience. So happy to share some of those with you in an orderly manner. Number 2, I want to share with you, I hope these insights equip and empower you with actionable ideas. Have any of you ever listened to a speaker and maybe 5 minutes into the speech, even if it's a professional speaker, you're at a conference for work or some venue where, 5 minutes into a speech, maybe even 10, 15 minutes into your speech, you're wondering, what can I do with this information? Because right now I don't know. My goal always is to make sure that information not only inspires you with insights, but also that can empower you to actually do something with it. Give me a thumbs up if that sounds good. You actually want to do something with this information. Okay, good. I hope I can do that today. And then lastly, as I mentioned, we'll take a little Q&A, questions and insights. I don't call it a Q&A, right? So feel free, hey, steal that. If that's your first nugget already today, call it a Q&A. Don't call it a Q&A, because who are we to think we've got all the answers? All we have is insights. So if you want to chat with me today or ask questions about accredited speaker, I already see some folks in the chat. It's like, oh, wow, I'm interested in an accredited speaker. All right, ask me some questions about that. Catch this. The deadline, does anybody know when the deadline is? Put it in the chat if you know when the deadline is. It's just around the corner. January. Let me see it, somebody. Thank you, Melissa. January 31st. Here's the thing. It's not too late. Now, you can't do this overnight. You can't get the application ready overnight, but you can do it over time. And I believe if you still got 10 days, if you meet some of the criteria, boom, you're ready. And if you don't apply, the answer is going to be no. So you can ask me questions about that if you want. You can ask me questions about professional speaking you want. You can ask me questions more specific to Toastmasters, anything you want. In the time permitting that we've got, we'll talk more about it. Sound good? All righty. Now, I'm curious, and I was really pleased. Thank you, Terry, and thank you to the planning team, the whole planning team. Let's give them a round of applause. When I registered myself for this event, it was really nice to see that they provided you with my accredited speaker keynote at the international convention. Now, how many of you actually watched it? Okay, good. Thank you, Susan. A few of you I would expect that you did. But here's why that matters. Professional speakers, and for those of you that watched my video, you will know the answer to this. So type this in the chat if you like. The greatest speakers are the greatest what? What do you think? The greatest speakers are also the greatest
listeners.
Yes, I see a lot of these coming, and all these answers are right. The one that I went with for the accredited speaker was the greatest speakers are also the greatest storytellers. So listen to a very short clip from that speech.
And so, my friends, if you're taking notes online, if you're taking notes, please put this in the chat as well. The greatest speakers are the greatest what? Storytellers. Let's say that again like we mean it. The greatest speakers are also the greatest storytellers. Yes. But also, the greatest professional speakers are also the greatest problem solvers. Let me say that one more time. Write that down in the chat. Write that down if you're taking notes. The greatest professional speakers are the greatest problem solvers. Does that make sense? Because a story has to have a point. That point has to help an audience solve a problem. And that problem, also, what we're sharing has to inspire the audience to want to do something with that information. I call that a call to action. So if a story we're sharing in a presentation or a series of stories in a presentation can inspire people with a point, helping them with their problem that we likely don't even know what they're dealing with, but also equip them with action steps that they can take, my friends, fellow Toastmasters, we're all, that's one thing we all have in common. That is art. Storytelling, when done properly, incorporating those fundamentals, is art. The audience happens to be the canvas.
All right, would you agree with that? I hope so. So the greatest speakers are the greatest storytellers, the greatest professional speakers. For those of you that maybe you've thought about professional speaking, and by professional speaking, I mean you're getting paid to do it, organizations hire you to come in. The greatest professional speakers are the greatest problem solvers. So today, when I was thinking about what content could I possibly share, or what insights that hopefully would add value to you, there are two stories that came to mind. And I do this with every single presentation. Many people ask me, how do you have the same presentation that you share with multiple organizations? Or, how do you customize a speech? And I customize every single speech I do. Yes, I've got sample programs, and yes, you can see those on my website, but when I then get to know an organization, what their theme or any messaging is, what the challenges that they might have that they're dealing with, I customize everything. So Terry was very helpful for me today with a questionnaire and some other insights. And I had two stories that kept coming to my head that I felt would add value to you. Okay. And they will have a point. And yes, there will be a call to action. So if you're looking to really improve, take your speaking to the next level in any way, remember this: PSA, point, story, application. The application makes it about your audience. It takes you out of it. And that usually is what's most relevant and helpful for that organization. So today, point, a story will have a point, and it will have an application for you. All right, ready to dive in? I hope so, because we're doing it. Okay, I want to share with you the story of the Pike Place Fish Market. Now, the Pike Place Fish Market, many of you have probably heard this story. And in fact, if you have, give me a thumbs up. Excellent. This is a very popular story. In fact, it's a world famous story. I've got a personal connection to it. But the Pike Place Fish Market is a fish market in Seattle, Washington, all the way up north, surrounded by other fish markets. It's a touristy location where people go in downtown Seattle and they go, buy fish, they have lunch, they're walking around downtown. Now, the Pike Place Fish Market, their product is what? Dead fish. Now, people usually say fish. Their product is dead fish. All right. Now, in the early 90s, this was a struggling fish market. Sales were down, engagement and morale were very low, turnover was high. A new manager came into this fish market, and this new manager went to his small team and he said, look, if we don't think differently, if we don't do something different, we will not be around much longer. So that alone empowered this small team of people to think big, try new things. And the first couple things they thought of didn't really work. In fact, they failed. They weren't very successful. But for those of you that know this story, what did the Pike Place Fish Market do differently that did stick and has now made them world famous, which is probably why some of you know this story? What did they decide to do differently? Any ideas? Sarah, you're exactly right. They added fun. All right, the first person I see is Patrick. Let's give it up for Patrick Brinkman. All right, Patrick says they tossed the fish around. Susan, are they the ones that threw the fish? Yes. Now, this might sound a little cray-cray. Like, what do you mean they threw the fish? Well, let me show you what this looks like, okay? So if you are a tourist walking by, they're going to pull you in. There will literally be a crowd of people hovered around the Pike Place Fish Market watching people throw fish, right? That's what the employees were doing, which then brought in prospects and created them into customers. into members in our clubs, right? So then if you're going to buy a fish, they're going to put you behind the counter. That's her third attempt trying to catch this fish. Or you can throw it to them. I mean, look at the smiles on these faces. Look at the smiles on these faces. Now look at this picture. And remind yourself, she is holding a dead fish. Now this one might be a little much, right? Larry, is this one a little much? Yeah, give me a thumbs up. This is a, we'll call this healthy obsession with the Pike Place Fish Market. Yeah, the fish is, yeah, Sarah, you're right. The fish is actually smiling. But here's the point. The circumstances weren't ideal at the time. This was a struggling fish market, but they decided to have fun. They decided to think differently and engage these potential customers a little differently. And that is how they differentiated themselves. This is how they stood out in the sea of sameness. Because remember, this Pike Place Fish Market was surrounded.
They included everybody.
Exactly. And they engaged not only the people around them, but they also engaged their employees in a different way. So whoever said that, you are spot on. You are spot on. And this is a metaphor. The Pike Place Fish Market truly is a metaphor for us as Toastmasters. This is how we make this story relevant for us. We really have to ask ourselves, what differentiates us? You know, what differentiates us? Now, I've been a member, as I mentioned, of several clubs. And what I've discovered, and many of you who are a member of multiple clubs or have been over the years, you know this as well, that every club kind of has its own personality. And clubs are different. You know, some follow the agendas and to a T, whereas others are kind of a little bit less structured, or, you know, but we have to know what differentiates us, and we have to reflect on that. So this is the same message that I share actually in my presentations and to my corporate organizations and even with my speaker coaching, because catch it. And here's to take this, I call this my onion moment, you know, to cut the core, go to a deeper level here. It's not just about differentiation. And this is key. What differentiate, and if you're taking notes, I would write this down. And by the way, if you want the slide deck, I'm happy to share it with Terry, or just email me. I'm happy to give you this entire slide deck today. Just remember that, because I'm more interested in you taking action than taking notes. But if you are taking notes, I'd encourage you to write this down. What differentiates you is the experience that you provide doing it. And that, my friends, that's the key, that if we can really tap into that. Because the Pike Place Fish Market, they understood that. That's how they differentiated themselves. Because they focused on how do they create an experience, right? And it's not different than what was mentioned earlier from Cindy. I mean, great presentation, Cindy, about moments of truth. And when we ask ourselves, when we start off with a question, how can we create moments of truth? How can we create guest experiences? How can we create member experiences? You see how that word, just the word how, opens our mind up to the possibility that we can. It's not a yes or no question. How can we? And that's a great, especially for you as leaders. You know, for those of you who are presidents and involved with your area and your division and your district, gosh, you got a lot of responsibility. Asking the folks that we support open-ended questions really get them thinking about, it's not can or can't they, it's how. How can they? And what I really think when we talk about, you know, member moments, do they matter? Absolutely, because they're based on experiences. So moments, I really think it's the same thing as an experience. And that's how this fish philosophy became literally world famous. Sound good? We'll talk more about, we're going to dive a little bit deeper on how we can do this in just a moment. But this is the same principle, again, that I share. It's like fundamental module 1. I wrote a book called Pay to Speak. It's 5 modules. It's only 5 modules. Module 1 is all about, if you want to become a successful speaker, you really have to know what differentiates you. Because catch this, what I've learned, and I'm reminded about this every single week. When a meeting planner or a bureau or organization reaches out to me to speak, they've got options. You know, your future members who are right now guests, maybe they don't even know about Toastmasters. Do they have options? So what's going to make them pick your club? What's going to get them to even join Toastmasters, which all of us, we wouldn't be investing our time today if we didn't care, right? It's about the experience we provide. And yes, that's going to take some effort. It's going to take some intention. So if this was one of my professional programs, I mean, I'm doing a professional speech, but if I was talking to an organization, I developed a program called Becoming a Shift Thinker. You got to say that word carefully, shift thinker. And there are some ways where we can differentiate. How can we create that experience? And let me just share with you what 4 of those are. And this is going to be 20 seconds. I'm not going to dive into this today. There's a lot more to this, but shift thinker is about 4 cyclical concepts, principles that are timeless and universal, in my opinion. Number 1, you got to have a growth mindset. Would you agree with that? If you're going to grow, you got to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. Did the Pike Place Fish Market have a growth mindset? Yes or yes? Yes, they did. Number 2, you got to think differently, right? You got to think different. You can't be the same. To stand out, you got to be thinking different. Number 3 would be this. How do you envision new opportunity? I love acronyms if you can't tell. The NO, envision the NO, stands for new opportunity. So for those of you that have ever experienced a no or been told you can't do something, well, that's me. Years ago, I used to believe that. Now I'm like, oh, and somebody tells me no, somebody challenges me, or somebody says something that we can't do something, or that it's always been that way. That excites me now, because that means I'm on the right track. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And go back 2 or 3 years. I didn't even have a Zoom account. I didn't even know how to do virtual presentations. So the first time we do anything, it's inaugural. It's the first time. I mean, think about for District 35, your first virtual conference was it maybe 2020, right? It probably felt really uncomfortable, and it's like, but look at us now. Hopefully you're having a great time, right? So the first time we do anything, it will feel uncomfortable. It's inaugural. After the first time, guess what it's called? It starts with a T. Tradition. So after the first time, guess what? It's tradition. We've always done it this way. And what we have to be careful of is those traditions, we have to keep growing from there. Okay? I like that, Tina. I've also heard no is never ending opportunities. I like it. So we have to be NEO then, right? Neo. I'll take Neo too. That's fine. I like it. But one missing piece to that, you got the growth mindset, you got think differently, you got envision the new opportunity, right? But then you got to do what? Act. You got to take action, and action is an acronym. It stands for action changes things. So let's talk real briefly about this. What does differentiate your club? I know Cindy had a great conversation with you all today about what are some of the ways that we create these member moments. Because member moments, in my opinion, are very similar to experiences, right? But we have to know what differentiates us to accomplish that. Does anybody want to share? This is the interactive part of my speech, or one of them, hopefully. I'll take 2 or 3 comments. Feel free. Take yourself off mute if you want, or just type in the chat. Yeah. What differentiates you or your club?
Our club is very rules oriented. We have a sergeant at arms who's very strict, and I don't always love it, but I feel like I'm learning a best practice and can apply it anywhere else.
Thank you, Sarah. 2 claps to Sarah. Boom, boom. All right, good job. What are 2 others? Explain to people what Toastmasters is. Some people think it is toast, and explain to them what it really is, public speaking, and explain to them why it's important to the community, and why it's important for them to learn how to do. Absolutely. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate you. Barb, where's Barb at? Barb Weisenberger. I love what she wrote in the chat. If you can see it there, it says, our club culture is so supportive and welcoming. Think about that. Think about putting yourself as a guest, and you have no speaking experience, and public speaking is, more people fear that than they do sharks and jumping out of a perfectly good plane, right? But you go and you find out these people are actually really nice. It makes you want to do what? Go back. So let me share with you, if it's okay. I'm currently involved. I'm on the board with a club here in the Carolinas. We're a virtual club, but we're based here in District 117. We're called Speaking Professionally Toastmasters. And one of the first things I say to folks is, don't let our name intimidate you. That's just our mission, is to help people learn how to speak professionally. And when I was thinking about what are some of the ways that we differentiate ourselves as a club, I kept going back to, it's not just what we do in a meeting. It's what we do prior to the meeting, like pre-meeting. Yes, what we do during a meeting is unique, but then also how we follow up afterward is unique. And what we do in between is unique, not just with guests, but also with our members. So if it's all right with you, let me do this. Can I read you a few of these, what we do in each one of those areas? And just for ideas. I took some time just to write this down, and I'm not even going to get to all this. This isn't about our club. It's about anything I share with you in the next moment. Make it your own, right? Make it your own. So one of the things that we do on our Toast Host site for Speaking Professionally, Toastmasters.org, and you can even see this if you want, we have a really good description about our club. Not just what it is, but the benefits about it. Second, we have a demo video that's on there. We have a demo video that shows people, hey, if you join our club, here's what we really want to help you accomplish. And we also tell folks, you decide your speaking goal. We'll help you get there. Okay. Something that Cindy mentioned too that's really helpful. Toastmasters is great. There's not a week that goes by where I don't get inquiries about people that want to attend our club from the Toastmasters International site. I make it a point, even if I'm busy throughout the day, I've got a standard reply that's very personal that I immediately send to them. And in the past, when I've reached out to Toastmaster groups, I may not even ever hear back. And usually when people reply to my email, thanking them for inquiring, encouraging them to visit our site, welcoming them to a future meeting, usually 9 times out of 10, they say, thank you for writing back so quickly. So was that a moment of truth that they already felt, right? Before they even attended a meeting. Then also what I do, I send them a calendar invite for our next meeting. We send them actual calendar invite with the Zoom link because we're all virtual. And I follow up with them. In fact, I send another email to them 3 days prior to that meeting. I schedule the email. I schedule it. So I use Gmail. I can schedule it 3 days before that next meeting so it goes to them automatically while I'm sleeping. I don't have to think about it. And we track it. We have a guest tracking document. It's a Google Sheet that we use. It's a Google Sheet where we put name and email and when they inquired and their status, because we want to track that. So those are just some of the things we do pre-meeting. During the meeting, first thing we do is we recognize our guests and members. It's the first thing we do. We also have a pre-meeting networking opportunity for about 15 minutes, and half our club joins 10, 15 minutes prior to connect. And then we start promptly. We have share your speaking win since last meeting. We also have a motivational moment. We have educational content. And one of the other things that we do is before we leave, we have everybody share a monthly goal. What's a goal that you have prior to the next meeting? Because we want to support you in that. And then after the meeting, we follow up with people. Okay, we follow up with people. We also have a work session in between that next meeting because we only meet monthly. So what we do is we have a work session 2 weeks later. And for our new members, and I'll shut up after this, but this is really important. We just launched last week, our first ever. We had a new member orientation, which I heard you all talk about. That's amazing. Every club should do that. You should have a new member orientation. You should also record that new member orientation, make it into a video that's evergreen so you can use it with other people, right? Think about that. And that we're going to use that member orientation video as a reminder to our members the value that we have in our club. I mean, because some of us, we've been around for a year and a half, 2 years. They may have forgotten about how to access some of the great resources that our club has. And then we also have a mentor-mentee assignment. We try to match them with somebody else for one-on-one support, and they also can engage in a Facebook group for further accountability and connection. So those are some of the things that we do just with our club. Hopefully that gave you a few ideas. Any quick comments, thoughts on that? Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right. So again, it goes back to you. What differentiates your club? We have to be thinking about that. And this is not something that you decide. It would be something that your club decides. Or if you're an area or division director or a district director, you have to ask yourself, what differentiates our area? What differentiates our division? What really differentiates our district? Okay. But here's where I like to go. And I wish we had a little bit more time, but I'd like to focus on you. I want to serve you. Because right now, most of today is all about how do we better serve our members? How do we better serve our district, our clubs, our guests? Can I talk to you for a moment? How do we better serve you? What differentiates, you? This is one of the things that's helped me the most. When my speaker coach over a decade ago, the best money I ever spent was hiring my coach. He said, what makes you different than any other motivational speaker? I couldn't answer it back then. I didn't know. But I began to reflect. And then I was able to identify some of the things that really make me different. And then I tripled down on that. Because they always have speaker options with me, and I know that, and I'm okay with that. So, what differentiates you? I encourage you to write that question down. What differentiates me as a leader? You might be following up another president right before you who was really, really good, and there were some big shoes to fill. Or, maybe you kind of got thrown a notebook and said, hey, have fun. Go to the TLI training. And you're like, ah! Well, guess what? Maybe what differentiates you is actually showing up, And let me give you an example of this. Have any of you ever seen sign flippers? Like you're driving down the road, right? You've seen the sign flip. Yeah, Krista, Susan, Lacey, yeah. So catch this. This is a gentleman across the CarMax dealership, literally about 2 miles from where I live right now, here in North Carolina. He's a sign flipper in front of a furniture store. Is he flipping signs? No, he's sitting down. Is this guy effective? No. But did he show up? Yeah. He showed up, but he showed up ineffectively. Now, if this was reverse marketing, that would be interesting, because we're talking about it. But I wouldn't be motivated to go into that furniture store as compared to this person doing it a little bit differently. How about that? All right, wait for it. Watch this. Watch. I saw this sign flipper when I was in Texas speaking. I pulled over, took a video of this guy, and then I asked for permission. But the point is, both these individuals here, did they show up? Yes or yes? Yes, they showed up, but who showed up more effectively? Right? This person at the top. And I think sometimes we just got to remind ourselves when it's most difficult is when it's most required. Just to smile, to kind of bring that positive energy. And look, I know that's tough. There are days I do motivational speeches where I don't feel motivation. But the moment that I've got with my audience, that makes everything worth it, right? And it has nothing to do with doing backflips. This is very, very important. It has nothing to do, I can't do backflips, Kevin. But it's about the energy. 2 E's here, 2 E's for you, write these down. It's about the energy we bring, because people will notice that more than anything else. That impacts your eye contact, your body language, all the things that people actually get communicated by. And then secondly, it's the effort. So when you think, or maybe you sometimes challenge, or you second guess yourself, or maybe you've got some imposter syndrome. I do at times. I get imposter syndrome all the time, especially when I watch a great speaker. I'm like, whoa, so I can't be them. They can't be me. But the energy that I can bring and the effort that I can deliver usually is what helps me achieve a goal. Because I'm not gonna be the smartest person in the room. I'm not gonna be the best speaker ever, but I can only be my best, right? So that's a little bit of kind of some self-motivation for about. I do want to go back to this simple question: is what differentiates you as a leader too? And I'd encourage you to really triple down on that. So look, we've only got a few more moments of time. I want to go back to this fish story just for a second, because I bought my fish. I was doing a keynote in Seattle a couple of years ago, and I decided I want to see if they walk their talk. How many of you have ever followed a leader? You've envied somebody, you've looked up to somebody, and then come to find out they didn't really walk their talk at one point? Yeah, what happened? You're like, ooh. Well, so for me, that's really important, especially in the stories that I share. So I walked down there. Before I turned the corner, there's a crowd of people hovered around the Pike Place Fish Market. And I had two immediate thoughts. One was, yes, they're walking their talk. The second thought I had, immediate feeling, was I felt bad. And who do you think I felt bad for when I looked in that area? Who do you think I felt bad for?
The competition.
Exactly, Larry. Thank you. I felt bad for the other fish markets because they were completely empty. And I thought, wow, they're actually watching these guys have fun with their job and doing what they do. And I guarantee you, a lot of them were thinking, well, we can't throw fish, Kevin. We can't throw fish, motivation boy. What can we? But, well, you're right. But could they have done something different? Yeah. And they made a choice not to, which still, in my opinion, is a choice. So when we choose not to do something, that's a choice not to do it. When I go to the gym, which I should do more often, I rarely want to go to the gym. I rarely want to go. I'm always trying to fit it in. But catch this. I've never felt bad for going afterward. Think about that, right? So when I bought my fish here, and I need to be transparent, that's not my wife. So we'll get rid of her. All right. My wife hates this picture. And just recently I was invited to go back to Seattle, and I said, good, honey, we'll get a new picture. As long as they're throwing fish, we'll go down there, we'll get a new picture. But here's where this takes a new level, okay, where we might need to end for time's sake today. This is the manager right here. John Yakimoto is the manager of that fish market. This is Justin, one of the employees, okay? I asked them, what's your daily schedule? Like, y'all just seem to have fun doing this. And think about this. Here's what they told me. Well, have to be here at 5 a.m. We shovel ice for 2 hours, wait for the fish to come in, then we put the fish on the ice for another 2 to 3 hours. People come in around 10:30, 11, usually start trickling in, the tourists, people having lunch at the cafes around, people buy fish for dinner. 2 p.m., that's usually when we start cleaning up. They leave around 4 p.m., 12-hour day. Now, what do you think they do the next day? Any thoughts? Yeah, Paul. Paul's doing this, exactly. Lisa, what do you think they're doing? I'm looking at you, Lisa.
Same thing.
Yeah, the same thing. And here's where this takes another level. And this is what's really, here's what's really important for us to remember. People don't get burned out by what they do. They get burned out because they forget why they do it. And it can be easy to get burned out. Yes, it can be easy. But friends, again, our clubs are really not much different than a fish market. That effort can feel overwhelming, but catch this, that effort matters. But when we think differently about that, like what we do, like I don't like sending emails, I don't like sending calendar invites, but when they show up and they say, wow, this was a great meeting, y'all are actually a very welcoming group, I want to join. That makes everything worth it, yes? Or when we get somebody who just wrote me personally yesterday and says, I just got my first $4,000 speaking engagement because of this club. Bam! That makes everything worth it to me and has nothing to do with me. You know, one of the things we say in our club all the time, and I encourage you to write this down, say it too, like, look, our club success is not because of the club, it's because of the members, right? And a rising tide, I'm a sailor. I lived on a boat for 2 years. That's a whole other program. I Airbnb my sailboat. I'm a sailboat captain. I love going out in my boat. It's like my second church. A rising tide lifts all ships. Okay? Yep. Paul's like, oh. So look, we can't, in 2023, I'll give me 5 more minutes and we'll close and we'll take some questions. Yeah. Ooh, I like that, Cindy. It's all about me. The members experience. Ooh, you better buy that domain. I might take it. All right. Sarah, fellow sailor. I love it. Love it. In 2023, for us in our clubs, for us personally, for us in our clubs, for our areas, all these layers that we're serving, also our relationships, our personal goals. Nothing will change in 2023 unless we make one. Einstein said this, insanity is doing the same thing over and over, yet expecting a different result. You know, in activity, I use this with my student audiences. I do it with my professionals sometimes too, and they get actually more from it. If you want to connect all 9 dots with 4 straight lines, you got to do what? You got to think outside the box, which means you got to push yourself outside of a comfort zone. You've got one, I've got one. I've got different layers of comfort zones for different things, right? I'm still working on my comfort zone with virtual presentations. It's still a struggle for me, right? But every time I try something different, in fact, this is the number huge speaking tip for any of you. You really want to take another way to really take your speaking to the next level. Every single speech you do something different. Most of what works for me now were things I never started or never tried. How I incorporate music now, how I do certain things now is what differentiates me, because at one point I pushed myself to try it. And maybe if it didn't even work well, which I've had some bombs, I learned from it. I asked myself, what can I learn from that? How can I make that better next time? You see how that really pushes you to grow, and your comfort zone gets bigger, and your comfort zone gets bigger, and your comfort zone gets bigger, right? So even in our clubs, we have to be trying new things. I love what was mentioned earlier. Love what you were mentioning earlier about doing a reverse meeting. I think I've got a couple members of my own club here, or of our own club, Speaking Professional Toastmasters. I want to try that. I'm already taking that away. That's one of my huge takeaways from being with you all today is I'm going to try a reverse club meeting. I have no clue how that might work, but we're going to try it. Maybe. We'll see. Any of you ever been skydiving? Any skydivers? All right, think about skydiving. You jumped out of a perfectly good plane, right? Why'd you do that? Well, I did it because I lost a bet when I was 22. My best friend and I had a big bet about something, and we jump out of a perfectly good plane, and here's that video. Now, when you jump out of a good plane, you're strapped to somebody you don't know, and you're falling down to earth, and what are you thinking? Well, prior to jumping out of the plane, you're like, what am I doing, right? Horrible. And then now, within half a second, when you're falling down to earth, it becomes one of the most exhilarating things you've ever done in your life. And you're like, why did I wait this long? Then at about 5,000, am I going to die, Lisa? That's right. Yeah, am I going to die? Yeah, Maria, you've done skydiving. That's awesome. And then I'm with you today. So I landed, right? 5,000 feet, altimeter, boom. You throw the parachute out and you land. And here's the question I want you to think about is, when you land, what do you think most people want to do once they land? They want to do it again. Mike, exactly. Amy, yes. They want to do it again. Unless they're an anomaly. And I've asked this when I use skydiving as an example about pushing your fear. Feel the fear, do it anyway is what I say, right? How do we push ourselves to try something new? And I think I love Toastmasters. Love it, love it, love it. And there's no but after this. So I'll say and. There's lots of rules and procedures, right? Sometimes we have to ask ourselves, is this rule and procedure holding us back from thinking outside the box, maybe trying something new, right? Or how can we stay within this approved type of, how do we try something new is simply what I'm trying to say. And a lot of organizations struggle with this because doing what they've always done, right? It's more comfortable. And yes, it might require taking a little bit of risk. So that's really what I want to end us with today, is to really think about how do you want to grow in 2023 is going to really be also determinant on how do you want to differentiate yourself based on experience. Really focus on that experience for everybody. You're the Pike Place Fish Market. But then also ask yourself, well, what does that look like? How do we do that? And I don't know the answer to that, but I do know this. There might be some trial and error, but focus on where that arrow is pointed. Where's that arrow pointed? Exactly. It's just like how we got to the moon. Let's just say we did. But look, how we got to the moon. Most brilliant minds, 97% of the time, the trajectory was wrong. We had to adapt. We had to be flexible, right? And frankly, for me too, this is my speaking journey, y'all. People look at me now and think, oh, Kevin, you're a professional speaker. Oh, this or that. Oh, but even before accredited speaker, I was terrified. I told my wife, she looked at me, she goes, are you happy? Are you excited? I'm like, no, I'm terrified. I'm getting judged for this. And, I'm on a international stage. I was terrified. But I always ask myself, even if I make mistakes, nobody knows unless I show them or talk about them. So if you do watch my accredited speakers talk my speech, I made mistakes all through that. And even I was surprised a couple of them didn't show up. But the point is, I learned from, even that speech I learned from, and I've done that speech 100 times. So, all righty. So aren't we all on a journey though, right? So think about what questions you might have for me. Number one rule of speakers, know your audience. Number two, end on time. Right, Terry? So I don't know how much time we've got, Terry. I think I've got 10, maybe 5-10 minutes for questions. Is that right?
You have 13 minutes.
Oh, I got 13.
Yeah, you have till 10:05.
Doesn't mean I need to take the time, because hey, if you end short, that's fine too, right? So we'll focus on your questions. How about that? And I do have some ending. Give me 1 minute at the very, very end. I want to share with you some QR codes for those of you that want to watch my accredited speaker. I'll give you the link for that, as well as one or two other things that might be pretty cool.
Okay, I can let you know when that time comes.
Perfect. Yeah. What questions you got? You want to talk about accredited speaker? You want to talk about professional speaking? You want to talk about more club leadership stuff? What questions you got? Anybody? Anthony says speechcraft. All right, that's a topic. Any specific question, Anthony?
Yeah, you're incorporating a lot of techniques that are cutting edge. It's like just the way you're standing now, what you have in the background. It's the way you introduce information that shows up next to you. You're using the technology as a prop. How do you do that?
Trial and error. Well, I am in a virtual studio, right? And so I knew for me personally, Anthony, thank you, my friend. Let's go back to March 8th, 2020. That was the last time I did an in-person presentation until 2021, middle of it, 20. And I was like everybody else, sitting down in front of a bookshelf. Now, if I'm on a meeting, if I'm like you all, yeah, I'd probably be sitting down, But if I'm presenting, for me as a keynoter, I really wanted to differentiate myself, and I hired a coach. Number one, I saw how it was done by one other speaker. March, April, May 2020, everybody was doing free virtual Zooms and webinars, trying to, because we thought this would all end soon, right? COVID, pandemic. I was like, that's not me. I hate that. I can't. I need my audience. Then I saw one, long story short, I saw one person, fellow Toastmaster. He's now a certified speaking professional within NSA, National Speakers Association. Stan Phelps, saw him do a webinar, and it was like, oh, he's standing up. He's got these two different screens, right? Like this. He's not doing this. Can you see my slides? No, that doesn't even come out of his mouth. And I'm thinking, well, how'd you do that? And Stan says, come over to my office. I'll show you. It was right down the street. I mean, I didn't believe in coincidences. So and he helped me. Then I hired his coach, who helped me build a virtual studio with lighting and sound, backdrop, which you're kind of referring to, Anthony. And I made a choice. I was going to stand up when I'm presenting because I want to deliver as best as possible. I want to deliver the in-person experience as best as possible. And I hope you will appreciate that as well. So that's how I got started. And it was, I mean, I was up here 12 hours a day, Anthony and others. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because I didn't know how to do any of it, but I kept doing it. Toastmasters was great for me because I kept practicing. I became more familiar. So right now I'm looking into a camera. I've got a 75-inch TV right behind the camera, so I can see you. But right now my eye contact is because I'm looking at a camera. I would much rather be looking at you in person. But I'm more comfortable doing this right now because I know that's what you need for that eye contact and that connection. And I could keep talking about that, but let's see what other questions we got. Paul, you asked OBS. Is that a technical question?
Isn't that the online broadcasting service program?
OBS, I believe, is one. So I've got a 810 mini switcher. And by the way, too, for any of you that want to up your virtual game, I've got some free virtual training videos I put together. One of them took me 15 hours to do it for a 15-minute video. You're welcome. Because I gave it to my coaching clients. Well, then I decided to give it to anybody that wanted it. So if you're looking to up your virtual game, I'll send you a link for this virtual. It walks you through everything that I do. I've got a switcher, an 810 mini switcher. And I've also got two Sony a6400 cameras. That's the DSLR camera. And look, don't let this intimidate you. But just know that yeah, there is some technical behind it. But OBS, I believe, is a software for another type of program that you could do this with. I don't have that. I made a choice to go this route a little differently. Grace, I'm looking at your question. Do you suggest having minimum requirements for your paid gigs to ensure maximum quality? Absolutely. Absolutely. And by minimum requirements, I don't know if you mean fee. I have a process. And again,
broadband. Your broadband's not coming through. Your broadband's not coming through. I mean, so in other words, you've paid for all this output, but because this is cheese country, we got Packers and beer, broadband, not so much. It's a problem. And it's a problem, I think, that all of the Wisconsin clubs are facing. And I live in a populated area, so it's not just the rural broadband that's the problem. So
yeah.
How would you address that with minimum, saying, look, we have to.
This right here, Ethernet. If I heard the question right about broadband or internet connection speed, then you gotta, whoever's your Zoom master has to be plugging into Ethernet. I don't rely on Wi-Fi, even for my coaching calls, even for meetings. I go directly with Ethernet. And if your laptop or computer doesn't have an Ethernet input, for $10 on Amazon, you can buy a USB Ethernet adapter.
Right, I have all that. It's literally the only service we have in my area is AT&T, and their idea of broadband is 2 tin cans and a string.
Sure. Yeah. Well, maybe
like Skynet. You know, you test that being worthwhile for a release.
Yeah. One thing looking back, when I called AT&T, we had some issues here too. We live off a road called Lead Mine Road. And I think there's lead everywhere. I think because there was lead everywhere and the signal was going, I had some issues with Wi-Fi. So I remember calling AT&T myself and I said, look, I'm gonna go with Spectrum because my neighbor has them and has no issue. Then AT&T says, well, did you know that you have Google Fiber where you're at? I'm like, no. How much is that? And they said, well, we'll come in and install it for the same monthly price. So I went from 100 megabytes per second to 1,000. So it might, and I'm sure you've done this, but it might behoove you to maybe call AT&T, directly go to their cancellation department, and it might give you somebody different. It gives you another option. But I don't know. I don't know your area, obviously. So maybe try that out.
We have some questions about the accredited speaker program. A lot of interest in how long your process was to reach that accredited speaker event.
This is a big, big distinction of accredited speaker. It's the number one thing I've been asked. You don't become a professional speaker because of being an accredited speaker. You become an accredited speaker because you are a professional speaker, right? Big difference. Now, you don't have to be a full-time professional speaker to become an accredited speaker. In fact, the minimum, I believe, is 25 paid speaking engagements. And I even saw something where it could be 15, as long as, and so that could be for any of you that want to pursue it, let that be a goal. I'd encourage you to get my book, Paid to Speak. It's $15. It is, I've read the books out there. They didn't do much for me. They're a bunch of hodgepodge, self-gratifying stuff. I wrote a book that walks you through my process. It's $15 on Amazon. I'll give you a link to it in just a moment. Boom. Work it. Let that be a goal. Accredited speaker could be a goal to shoot for, kind of like DTM, that pushes you to kind of go that direction. So accredited speaker is wonderful. I'm so thrilled that Toastmasters had it. I was a DTM. I just earned the DTM several years ago, and somebody came to me and said, well, what's next? I was like, I think I'm not one of those people that's going to go for another one, although I respect that greatly. And somebody said, well, why don't you look at accredited speaker? I said, what is that? I didn't even know about it. So the past 6 months, once I earned the accredited speaker, I kept telling the committee and Toastmasters International, I said, y'all, we have to do a much better job promoting what this even means or what it is. So I applied in 2019. I went through phase one. Phase one is you meet the criteria. Phase two is then you present during the convention. And it went virtual in 2020. So I did it virtually. And that was when I was not a good virtual presenter. Morning of the convention, when I was doing the speech, I made some changes to my speech like an idiot. Looking back, I was like, why did I do that? I made it into a Toastmasters speech. It's not a Toastmasters speech. It's a professional speech to Toastmasters. I made a big mistake and I didn't get it, partly because of that. In fact, that was probably the main reason I didn't get it. So I decided I'm not going to go in 2021 virtually. I probably could have done it in 2021, but I wanted to be in person. I wanted to be in Nash Vegas. I wanted that experience to be special with people. And that's why I deferred it to this year. And also why I was so nervous I was more nervous for that speech than any other speech I did last year, because I knew if I didn't get it, I'd look like a chump, or I would feel like a chump. Like, this is already what I do. I've done this 1,000 times. But it's like this, my friends. If you don't show up, you could be the best team. We got the Super Bowl coming up. You could be the best NFL team by far. But if you don't show up the day of the game, somebody else is going to win. And I made sure that I was in the right mindset. I have a ritual that I go through prior to every speech. I made sure I was in the right mindset. I still had nerves. But if you watch my accredited speaker speech, you'll see that I just decided also to have some fun. Mm-hmm. And within 1 minute, I shook all those nerves off, and I was like, yeah, let's go.
We are at 1 minute left. There's still some questions in the chat. I don't know if you're able to stay through the break. Maybe we can continue the conversation. If people have questions that weren't answered until our break is over.
Let's do that. For any of you that want to ask more questions, I'll stick around and I'll happy to chat. Terry, can I share one thing real quick, or a couple things?
Go right ahead. Yep, we got time.
For folks that want to stay in touch with me, and I have nothing to sell you right now, so don't worry. I'm not that guy. If you want to stay in touch with me, I would love to stay in touch with you. I have a free download on my speaker website for my book, Think Differently to Achieve Success. This book changed my life by writing it because I struggled with depression as a young boy. I talk about that in most of my speeches. So if you can download a free copy of that book, it's unlimited, and that's a great way for us also to stay connected, okay? If you are interested in professional speaking or just learning how do you find paid engagements? I've got a career, I don't want to quit my job, but maybe I want to do some speaking on the side for supplemental income. Boom, that's great too. I'd encourage you to get my book, Paid to Speak. Here's a QR code. They're back. They're fun. Just put your camera up to this or type up paidtospeak.biz. Paidtospeak.biz. You can connect with me there as well for folks who want to focus more on the professional speaking aspect. And then one thing I didn't even talk about today, I just launched my first ever TEDx talk. I heard some of you might want to do a TEDx talk. Would love to chat with you about that. But my TEDx talk here, and you can see the title, the subtitle of my talk was my recovery through depression and eating disorder and sexual assault. It's a very raw talk. I just delivered it. I wrote a book on it as well, and I'd be honored. This is my main mission in 2023, friends, is to get this talk into schools to help youth with mental health and resilience. I would be honored if any of you watched my talk and just watched it. Purevulnerability.com. So I'll leave it at that. I'm about to get emotional about that. And then last thing, if you do want to watch my accredited speaker, just type up Kevin Snyder accredited speaker on YouTube, or here's a QR code for that as well. But the key is I'd love to stay in touch in any way you want to stay in touch with me. And I thank you for your time. So Terry, thank you again. D35, I'm ready to thrive with you. Happy to help in any way.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Snyder. I don't know who else had goosebumps during that speech, but I sure did. So thank you again. I've got a laundry list of action items to circle back on. The energy and effort can help us to achieve our goal is something that resonated with me. And it's not a yes or no question, but rather to ask how. Dr. Snyder said he was able to stick around through our break. We will go to break now. I ask that you guys make sure you are back to your seats and settled by 10:20 a.m. Central Standard Time, please. Thank you.